I saw a recent interview that I read a recent interview that Busta Rhymes did for Hot New Hip Hop, if I'm not mistaken. And he was basically talking about how his new album was long overdue, right? The one that just came out recently that had that Kendrick Lamar feature. It had a whole bunch of other dope music on it. Matter of fact, you reviewed it, didn't you? You liked it, didn't you? I can't remember.
It was so-so.
It was so-so?
Yeah.
I didn't make my way through the whole album, but nonetheless,
25 tracks.
yeah, that was crazy. I'm not doing it. Especially with Busta Rhymes. I can't. Not in 2020. I'm just being real. So he brought up an interesting statement slash topic for me where he was talking about how hip hop, the difference between how where hip hop was when he was growing up, right, where he took off as a rapper versus where the game is now, and he, which I think more of the older artists need to do. Like he actually gave a lot of credit to the younger artists and how they are trying to shift the sound of rap and hip hop. Obviously we do a lot of that. We talk a lot about that on this show. And it was interesting to me to hear somebody like Busta Rhymes, who is now an elder statesman in the game, actually acknowledge how, even though he may not understand some of the younger music, that's exactly what they did to Busta Rhymes when he was a kid. They didn't. A lot of the old dudes didn't understand him, but yeah, he made a name for himself. He created an audience. He made history. He did a lot of things in his heyday, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. But why I'm bringing up this topic is because he also mentioned how even not only has the sound of music changed, but even the way albums are structured, even that has changed. You look at the fact that when we talk about hip hop albums, a lot of it consisted of skits. A lot of it consisted of a lot of interludes, traditional intros and outros. Like even the way the album was structured was just so different back then versus where things are today. And you see artists over the years try to be consistent or try to stick true to how things were put together in the past, but not do it quite like it was. I look at people like, and by the way, I'm not just sticking to hip hop per se, but just some of the new school guys. Bryson Tiller, he's somebody who is intent to have interludes. You look at Kendrick Lamar, right? Kendrick Lamar stayed with a goddamn skit. He stayed with a skit infused into an actual song, a consistent theme. Think about any of the rapidy rap dudes that you have loved over the years, whether we talking about Wu-Tang, whether we talking about people within Rockefeller, Dipset, all of these dudes. And again, I'm kind of going back a little bit, and it ain't that far. But just to see how albums have been structured historically versus where they are today, that shit has changed drastically. Now dudes is putting out 25 straight songs and expecting us to have the mental capacity to be engaged throughout a 25 song album. Like that's crazy to me. And to me, it's and while we do it because we review albums, your average person is not listening to a 25 long project. I mean, look at Chris Brown. He dropped two 50 song albums damn near. I think the first one was like 35 songs. The second one was 50. I can't remember, but it was a lot of fucking songs. Your average person is not listening to the album. That to me just it screams of the drastic changes that have happened with just music. So I'm not just keeping this simply with hip hop per se, but I do think it's interesting, even in recent history. Some of the albums that we've considered classics were very concise and they told a story. Those were some of the consistent themes that we've noticed over time. When I talk about Kendrick a lot. Matter of fact, you and I, we argued about Kendrick Lamar a lot last episode. And what does he do a lot? Why are 3 of his albums that he's come out with considered, like, arguably considered classic if they're not undeniable? It's not only because of the talent that he possesses. It's not only because of the music that he comes with and how it resonates with people. It's also the fact that you get that and then you infuse that with an actual story that's being told throughout a consistent body of work. And I think that's what's missing in music right now. Like a lot of artists are not packaging their music in telling a story. It's just a bunch of songs they compiled. Oh, let me just put that out. I'm calling it an album. Like it lacks that type of touch that music used to have back in the day. That I think if a new artist were to just simply have that type of intention now, still make all them damn songs that you were already gonna do, but A&R a little better. You know, come up with an actual theme. You know, put out a skit, maybe put out an interlude. Give people and package it in a way that people can really feel like, yo, damn, like that was an experience. I think music would be a lot more, I think, impactful, for real, for real. I really do.
I
What do you
mean,
think about that?
I'm not gonna lie. When I always skipped skits growing up, like we had the traditional CDs like Jay-Z, DMX. I always skipped it. Like I
You
mean,
tripping. You tripping. That was always something
I,
when I heard the album for the first time, I never skipped it. Never.
I thought
Now when I revisit the album after I already know the album, yeah, hell yeah, I'm skipping the skits. Yeah, for sure.
I mean
Absolutely.
interlude almost felt like a commercial break from the album, where it's like, yo, we just gave you 5 or 6 straight bangers. All right, take this little commercial break, because there's no set structure for an interlude. There's no set structure for outro. Like an interlude doesn't have to mean that it's somebody talking. It doesn't have to mean that it's a short song. An interlude could be anything that you want it to be. And so, like, in today's day and age, I personally don't think that interludes are super duper necessary, just because the way an album flows matters. And a lot of the albums are a lot shorter. They're about 11, 13 tracks. Putting an interlude there might disrupt the flow of how an album flows. I think that is the reason why there's not that many. But I'm actually okay with no interludes and no skits, no outro. Remember, there was always an intro, interlude, outro. I'm actually okay with that, especially if your heart's not in it. Like it, but however, if it's a album that tells a story, sort of like how Kendrick Lamar's album tells a story, I think it's pretty dope to put an interlude on there. A lot of people are also even putting interludes at the ends of songs, but to me, I don't miss it. It's as strange as that sounds. I don't miss it. You on mute?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm not mad at that, man. And I'm not even actually saying that you should miss it. It's more so me recognizing that look at how much music has changed. And also the creative artists still kind of do it in a way. Look at the album that St. John put out. And we're gonna talk about it in a little bit, right? Yeah, of course he doesn't have a traditional intro. He doesn't have a traditional outro. Doesn't even have a traditional interlude. As a matter of fact, I would argue that if you're really listening to the album, you can actually hear interludes. It's just not called an interlude. Like you can hear breaks in the album, little parts within the way the song starts, the way the song ends. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. So I think artists have switched up the way they're doing it. They switched up the way it's advertised, the way it's packaged. But the great artists are still kind of doing it. Like not all of them, but they're still kind of doing it. It hasn't quite gone away completely. It's just not being called out like it was before. Like I used to hate when artists used to have a song and it was called intro. And they have a song where it's called outro. It's like, bro, you have 4 albums in a row that's called intro. How do I know? Back in the day, you remember before, like we could actually sort things like we can now. It's like, damn, DMX got 2 songs that's called intro prayer. It's like, damn, which one is the one from the album I like? Fuck.
Yeah.
Damn it.
True. That's
true. Kind of annoying, man. It's like dudes have gotten more creative these days, the way they're actually packaging it.
Intros and interludes are songs now.
They're songs, right?
Like they'll call it like such and such intro, and it's actual real song.
Or they may not even call it an intro at all, but you can intro just normally has this type of feel to it where you can feel that it's an actual intro.
I mean, like Meek Mill brought back, Meek Mill kind of started that, making it super duper popular to have a dope ass intro. It's funny because majority of the albums that I rate, the intro is one of the top 5 songs. Majority of the albums, intro song. So I think it's imperative of how your album starts, but like I can't see music going back to the days where the album starts with an intro that somebody's talking, outro where it ends with somebody talk. I can't see that anymore. Like those days long gone.
I don't want that anymore. I think my biggest thing, for real, my biggest thing with these artists, and listen, everybody's different, but I think there's still a place for artists telling stories, bro. I don't give a fuck. You can be the most trappist dude. Like, dude, think about, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. You know who tells stories that in the most unorthodox way, but he's still a storyteller and he packages his music well? Young Dolph. You listen to Young Dolph's music, right? Think about when he got shot up, right? Remember when he got shot up in LA years ago? He came out with an album called like 500 Shots or some shit like that. I can't remember the whole name, but he told a story. He actually told a concise story about how he got shot and that the dudes don't want to do anything. Listen, as crazy as that sounds, I don't care what the content is. Just tell a story. It always makes the music better. I'm telling you. It always makes the music better.
YG does it too. Just like
YG does it. They all do it.
It makes it more of a classic album.
It makes it more thematic.
You have a better opportunity to make a classic album if you have intros, interludes.
Outros. Look at 21 Savage and Metro Boomin, Savage Mode 2.
No, I was tight.
Right? They're attempting to tell a thematic story. Of course, they got one of the best to ever do, if not the best voice that you could possibly get to tell a goddamn story, and they got Morgan Freeman.
Exactly. That was,
like get creative with it. This is what I'm talking about. Like get creative, dog.
That was epic. That was epic.
And for real, while you know we talked about that album, and I didn't think the album was that great. One of the highlights for me was Morgan Freeman being on the goddamn album. Like that should tell you how important like breaks in the album still can be. You can still create a moment where if you do it right, it will actually hit. It'll hit.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So